Hey folks, this is John Miller, Executive Editor with WV News. We would like to welcome you to Ask the Experts, featuring John Halderman of Beacon Wealth Management. John is the founder, owner, and certified wealth strategist at Beacon Wealth Management. You can find out more at bwmwv.com. And now live from the studios of the Exponent Telegram in Clarksburg, West Virginia, let's Ask the Expert. Welcome to Ask the Expert with Beacon Wealth Management's John Halderman. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Well, you know, when you talk about money creation and you think retirement, there's a lot of pitfalls to avoid. You know, you got to think tax planning strategies. You got to talk about how much money am I going to need for retirement? And then, you know, you get that point in retirement where you're thinking, hey, I got this free time. I want to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So talk to us how you got a client through those.
Well, you know, it's funny because one of the biggest misconceptions is that, I can live on far less when I go to retire. And, you know, and people have talked about from a tax planning standpoint that years ago they'd say, well, when you retire, you know, you're going to live on about 60% of what you now have. And because of that, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. But that's before I think there was a whole bunch of baby boomers retiring. You know, now we've seen a couple decades, and that really hasn't proved to be the case. You know, when people retire, you just mentioned it, go-go. I call it the go-go 60s. You know, when you're in your 60s, you retire it early so you can travel. And so one of the things that's big misconception is, well, I can live on less. But I think you need more when you first retire. Now, you're not going to need more forever, but when you're first going, you definitely need more. Because one of the things that people say to me, you know what, when I retire, I want to travel. I want to travel 4 to 6 times a year. And I'll say, well, how much do you travel right now? And they go, 2 times a year. And I'll say, okay, that's great. I said, but when you travel 4 to 6 times a year, where are you getting that money from? And they'll go, my retirement account. And I'll say, but if you're planning on living on less, then how are you going to fund that? And so what I always tell them is that, you know, don't plan for less in those early years. Plan for more because more travel, more free time, more spending. That's what comes with retirement. That's a big misconception.
You mentioned the taxation, and, you know, a lot of people go, well, yeah, I'm doing retirements. The taxes are deferred because it'll be cheaper somewhere down the line.
Sure.
That's not necessarily going to be true.
Oh, absolutely not. You know, I mean, think about this, okay? Are tax brackets going down or up? You know, we have almost $35 trillion in national debt. There is no way that we can continue to kick the can down the road and listen to politicians manipulate us. And I say this in a nice way because people think, we're going to lower taxes. No, we're not going to lower taxes. Taxes are more than likely going to go up. And so if you need at least the same income or more than what you need now, well, when taxes go up, that means the net income is going to go down. And so that's definitely another thing to think about because you're tax deferring this money, which is a great tax benefit. But if taxes go up, then you're not going to get as much out of it as what you did before. And so definitely something you got to plan for because like you said earlier, investments is part of comprehensive wealth management, but it's only one part of it. You know, I tell people when you only deal with just the investment side and you don't factor in the family legacy side and the tax planning side, well, you're missing a big component. That's like getting up and not brushing your teeth and not putting all your clothes on. You know, certain things you got to do every day, you know, and you got to think of all components of a comprehensive strategy.
And again, as a client, they will sit down with you and you will explain this to them one-on-one.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we always say. I say there's 5 building blocks, 5 major building blocks to a comprehensive wealth strategy. And so what I always tell people is there's no doubt about it. You got to have you got to be in a strategy to grow and protect your retirements. But as a simple example, you know, eventually you're going to pass away, and you've tax deferred all this money. And with the new Secure Act 2, what you have to do, your people that inherit this money have to liquidate it within a 10-year period. And so what you got to be thinking is you're building up this big tax bomb to potentially make them pay this taxes. And not only taxes on your savings, but it increases taxes on the money they earn because it counts as earned income. And so what we have to figure out is how do we reduce that tax burden? How can we do things that take this money that's taxable and turn it into tax-free wealth inheritance to your family?
Obviously, that's not an easy topic to handle sometimes. I mean, how long does it take you to sit down with someone and go over things and get to the point where you're comfortable, they're comfortable, and you're moving forward with a
You know
plan?
what? It's going to be different for each person, because everybody has a different level of experience. But the one thing I always tell people, we're going to go at your pace. This is not about a pace that I create. This is your money. And so one thing we do is whether it takes you 2, 3, 4, or 5 times, we want to make sure that whatever your goals are, that we have a clear understanding of your goals, we have a clear understanding of your situation, and we've got to identify things that potentially could create a train wreck for you or things that could be a missed opportunity. And again, it's not just investments, but it's the tax planning, it's the legacy planning, it's the risk. Because the one thing I always talk to people about is, hey, what happens if you end up in a nursing home? Who's going to cover those costs for you? What happens if you become incapacitated? So all of that has to be considered into your overall comprehensive strategy. And so the biggest thing is we just have the discussion. I always tell people, if it's on your mind, any of those things are on your mind, we need to sit down. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about, what you want to accomplish. Let's talk about those fears, those concerns. And then as professionals, we'll identify those other components and then one at a time, because I don't want to overwhelm people. We usually come up with a total, here's what we're concerned about. Then we ask you to prioritize, and then one thing at a time, we just check off the list. And so it could take multiple months, multiple steps, but in the end, it's going to give you that confidence to be able to say that, hey, regardless of what happens to me, I can feel good knowing that I've addressed every single component.
As always, a wealth of information, John. Any closing comment?
You know what? The biggest thing is think comprehensive. Because too many times people are out there and they're singular. When I say singular, meaning they talk to a broker or they talk to an investment person or they talk to someone at the bank. And what they're talking about is just a singular thing. But the one thing that happens is that it doesn't all work. Everything has to work harmoniously together. It's like a doctor who is giving you a prescription without knowing what other prescriptions you have. That's crazy when you think about it. And so the same thing with money. We got to get over the fact that when people come at you with a product and that product looks good, but you got to be thinking, how does it work harmoniously together in a coordinated manner with everything else you have to where it all benefits you simultaneously and not just a hodgepodge of things.
Excellent advice, John Halderman, Beacon Wealth Management. Thanks for joining us on Ask the Expert.
You're welcome, John. Thanks for having us.